Hello and welcome to the Leaders in Supply Chain podcast. I am your host, Rado Palamariu, Global Supply Chain Practice Head for Morgan Phillips Executive Search. Today I'm delighted to have with us Troels Randbøll Støvring, CEO of TWILL. Born out of the desire to simplify shipping for small and medium enterprises, TWILL is a multi-carrier digital freight forwarder that enables you to book, manage and monitor your shipments at the click of a button, from quotation and documentation right through to delivery. They take the complexity of getting your cargo from point A to point B and make it seamless. Now present in 19 countries, TWILL is rapidly expanding worldwide. Troels has been with the Maersk Group since 2012. He was first part of Maersk Tankers, then Damco, and now TWILL. He took the position of starting a startup within a corporate. The idea was generated in a strategic assessment done 4 months earlier within Damco, and their first task was actually to get a small team which relocated to Berlin. And I will let Troels tell you the rest of the story because it's a very interesting one. So Troels, welcome to our podcast, and it is a pleasure to have you with us today.
Thank you, Rado.
Super. So maybe let's tell our audience a little bit the story of TWILL, how it started, how you got it on the feet, and where it is today.
Yeah, sure. Well, thank you for inviting me here. So just a little bit about what TWILL does, because freight forwarding is an industry term that not a lot of people actually knows. So I think it's about looking at the actual service, and our service is if you are, for example, a small company in Spain who decides to import and sell cups in your local market, and you find a cup producer in Indonesia that you want to work with, then both the producer and the importer of these cups are probably experts in cups. But not a lot of them are experts in actually the trade and transportation of the cups, which will often be in a container. And it's actually quite complicated to know exactly how to do that. So first of all, TWILL is about making sure that transaction and the transportation of those cups are as simple as possible. So basically just a click of the mouse or a click of your thumb on an application. That's what we're trying to do. But you asked me how we started. So as you said, we are a startup within a corporate, which is already an interesting setup right there, right? In the beginning, I think we were actually an experiment. So we were an experiment to think, can we actually rethink the way we do freight forwarding, not just in Damco and the way we do transportation in Maersk, but in the industry? And can we actually create this new world-class digital customer journey for the customer by also utilizing the strength we have of Damco in the back? And that's how we set out to test that thinking, to talk to customers, to develop some software, to see how customers react to it, change the way we develop software and try again. And now here we're 2 years from when we started discussing this idea. And I think we have proved that there's actually value from the customer point of view in rethinking the approach we have to this market, rethinking the way we think about customers and customer engagement, and rethinking the way we look at the customer journey. However, even 2 years into the process in this industry, I would say we're quite new, we're quite small, we're still learning a lot. But we need to continue on this growth path to really make an impact on what we're trying to do.
Super, and thank you for the example, because that paints a very easy to understand picture in terms of what is freight forwarding and what you're trying to address, right? But let's just go back, because I think that there is an interesting story of why did you go to Berlin first and foremost, right? So you said that initially when you started the startup within a corporate, right? Then you went to Berlin to get it started. Why Berlin, and what was the idea behind it?
So Berlin for no particular reason besides the fact that we're working with a partner there. It could have been anywhere in the world. I think the key thing is, as you work in a corporate, you have to, if you really want to rethink the way you do stuff, no matter what you need to work on, you really have to distance yourself from conventional wisdom and experts within this area here, because that's just going to limit your thinking. It's going to limit your experimentation. From day one, the thinking was, let's get out of the headquarters. Let's not have a project team in the corner that needs to work with corporate stakeholders and have a corporate steerco. Let's send some team, a young dynamic team, send them to another city. Let's have them work with a strong partner there, and let's see what they can come up with on their own. I think that's a pretty cool way to work, and it is a bold move to make as a corporate to actually encourage that kind of working.
No, absolutely, and it's not. I mean, it's not a common story, actually. I mean, you do hear sometimes the story of corporates investing in a startup, right? So that they invest in a startup, they let the startup do their own thing, and then that kind of story, it's more common. But you kind of like the co-creation of a big corporate, right? So it's interesting how it came into fruition, right? So that's why I wanted you to share a little bit, because I think it's a different way of doing things and definitely creative, right?
I think that's some really good reasons for exactly doing it that way. So you would do that if you think that some of the capabilities within the corporate can actually significantly strengthen what you do in the startup. And here we truly think that. So we want to do something that Damco and Maersk have not really done before in terms of creating this world-class customer experience, in particular for smaller and medium-sized enterprises who don't have the logistics expertise and they shouldn't spend time on logistics. But we do have some really strong capabilities within Maersk and Damco. How do we take those and make them come to life in a new way of thinking? So when the ties are that strong, then I think this setup makes sense.
Mm. And obviously now you sit into, I mean, it's the biggest, is one of the largest, or the largest shipping corporation in the world, obviously Maersk. Damco is a top 20 freight forwarder. And then you talk a lot about the TWILL experience, right? You've been mentioning about the TWILL experience. How would you define that? You know, I mean, you were saying that you want to offer the customers that experience, that simplified experience. How would you define that TWILL experience?
The biggest compliment we can get in TWILL is when we actually have a sales guy or some else from TWILL sitting with the customer, and the customer looks at the screen and says, "Wow, that was easy." I don't know how to phrase it better than that, but that's really what we're looking for. And then coupled with the trust that we can actually deliver on the promise that we provide. So making a booking, getting a price, getting a process for handling your documents, probably getting the support and hand-holding throughout the process. When that is just that easy, then we really have our wow moments. And then also the trust in terms of saying that the TWILL is not just a software business. It is basically a software mixed with a physical world. So customers, part of the TWILL experience, they should also feel that they actually trust us to handle their physical execution, and also trust us to take care of anything that might go wrong. Because in shipping and international trade, things go wrong. We can't control the weather. We can't control, for example, what goes on in local ports.
Yes, for sure. And also you talk about co-creating with your customers, right? Co-creating with your clients. How do you do that? How do you involve them in the way you develop and add new features?
The co-creation is actually quite simple, and it makes a lot of business logic. You develop what the customer is actually asking for instead of what we think they're asking for. So in terms of software development, it's quite simple. We have a backlog of things we'd like to build. We always try to get customers to have a view on that, to ensure that we are building the things that make sense for the place we're in right now and what they're looking for right now. So we do that by direct interviews with customers. We do that by getting information back from our sales processes. We get that by sitting down with larger groups of customers to discuss a specific theme. We get that by also putting tests out into the platform. So if customers are asking for a certain function, maybe that function takes us 6 weeks to develop. Then instead of using those 6 weeks, we develop a very small version of that function. We put the button on the platform and we check how many actually clicks that. That's an easy way of testing if that's actually interesting for the customers as a group, or it's just a particular customer who's asking for a feature. So it's a little bit of it's an all-round approach, right? Always make sure that you make decisions based on what customers have asked for. There's also good tests internally when we start looking at what to prioritize, we have to ask ourselves, so who are the customers that ask for this? Why are they asking for it? Is it that specific feature they're asking for, or is it a more general problem they're trying to solve?
Yes, yes.
An example is a very, very concrete example. Customers told us we want a reporting function. Initially, we didn't want to build a reporting function because we wanted to have everything on the platform. So, the standard reporting, extract to Excel kind of reporting function. So now we just put the function up there. Okay, let's see how many clicks. And actually, we're getting quite a lot of clicks. But it's also interesting to understand why are we getting clicks. So why do they want a reporting function? And they don't want a reporting function because they're looking to have everything in Excel. Often they're looking for a reporting function because they want to be able to share the information with customers or other people in the organization. And then it's our basically our job to assess, well, is an Excel reporting function then the best structure, or is that just what they're used to? So maybe we can develop something that is cooler and easier to fulfill that desire.
Oh yeah, I mean it's a great example, and definitely for historical reasons, Excel is definitely the most popular, but not necessarily that it's the easiest.
Yeah, we love Excel, right? We love Excel in this industry here. We build an Outlook and Excel. That's the two main software platforms we use.
Correct. But maybe tell us a little bit more also about the benefits of using an online platform like TWILL, right? Because of course you provide transparency, you provide instant price quotes, booking is simplified. So does that mean you do away with a lot of paperwork? Does that mean that the clients save a lot of time? I mean, maybe you can give us some examples or some concrete case studies of how you saved, what were some of the benefits for your clients?
So we have clients coming back to us, and I'm not going to use the names right here, but we have really clients coming back to us and telling us. So that's the wow moment from before. They're saying, okay, we just saved half a day because everything was just there. Or we were able to book on a Saturday and actually get confirmation back immediately. That meant we could reach directly out to our customer and tell them X, Y, and Z. So we're getting a lot of feedback, in particular on time savings, I would say, and because that's what is most tangible for the customer. That's what they can compare to. So I think that's as concrete as I can get. Right? It's a little bit the ease of use is something that is really difficult to articulate when it's not there. But when it's there, you can all of a sudden see the impact. And what the customers see is more access to the service, quicker response times, and less time spent on doing a service that they did before. I think if I'm looking at, if you should benchmark it, then I would benchmark it to what Uber has done for the taxi industry. Not that I'm a fan of Uber, the way they have expanded and the culture they have built, but I do think what they have built within how we interact with an old school physical service is fantastic. So the taxiing, the actual service of Uber is still the same thing it was 30 years ago. It's not even a flying car, autonomous car, anything. It's still a guy that picks you up. You're still stuck in traffic. You still have to pay a fare. You still have to go in a normal car. So I think the best way to articulate what we're trying to do is saying, we want to change the way you interact with the physical service, just as Uber has done in the taxi industry.
Yes, is that interface correct? I mean, that's a very good example, actually. And kind of putting it into the perspective of TWILL as being part of the Maersk group, and Damco is in there as well. I mean, is the plan for TWILL to emerge to be the sole customer interface for Damco and for Maersk? Eliminating and replacing traditional customer front ends and communication channels, or is there a different intention?
That's a big question, right? Maersk
it's a loaded question. Yeah.
Great. Yeah, it definitely is. And to be honest, I don't know. I think it's the customer that will tell us that. Maersk and Damco I'm very eager about TWILL. It really supports what we want to do as a global company. We really want to be the one simplifying the logistics for our customers, and TWILL is all about that. So it fits nicely in. If we will be the only, I would say, customer interface with the customer, well, at the end of the day, that's the decision of the customer, not us. If we are able to to build this really world-class customer experience that is able to scale and customers love it, then it would be a no-brainer. Let's definitely do it. But I'm not going to bet all my money on just saying that TWILL should be the single front end for Maersk. That is not really a goal in itself, right? That's a very internal focused thing to say. So at the end of the day, we want to grow. We want to grow aggressively, and Maersk and Damco is behind that and really supporting that. But it's going to be the customer who tells us if we can actually do what you asked.
Mm. No, and it's. I mean, I'm impressed by that answer. To be fair, on a personal note, because again, it kind of speaks very, very clearly of your customer centricity, which is not something that, for good and for bad. I mean, the larger the organization, the more they lose focus with their clients. So I think it's a great thing if you maintain that perspective in TWILL, and probably what has led to the success so far. And also, I need to ask, right, because obviously in the last couple of weeks, there's been quite a few announcements within the Maersk group. You've also kind of changed your brand affiliation from Damco to Maersk. There's been a few big announcements within the group. So how will TWILL position how will you position yourselves in the market to create competitive advantage in view of all this kind of announcements within Maersk?
So the first thing is we changed our brand affiliation. We did that a couple of weeks before Maersk actually made any overall announcements around what is going to happen in particular the commercial part of Maersk. We did that completely as a separate decision. We want to go much more to an online interaction with our customers, because we think that's much easier for the customer. And to do so, we need customers to trust us. We need to trust that we will do what we say. We will do what we say, but we needed a little bit of a stronger brand affiliation. And Maersk within logistics, we have to focus on this. A very, very strong name. It's a family name of a Danish family who basically built the company from scratch, who has been a large part of designing the transportation industry as it looks today. How strong a brand can you get than that? It's 114 years old. So we want when people see TWILL and they see, well, it's a Maersk innovation, we want people to think, okay, that means they're here for the long run, and they have the capacity to actually do what they say. That's very important for us. That gives us a strong competitive position in the market, I think.
Got it. Mm-hmm.
Secondly, I would say that TWILL has been put a little bit different within the overall Maersk organizational structure. The reason why TWILL has been put differently in the overall structure is just to give TWILL its independence. In every structure, it's easier to get the way you want to work, the higher your position in the organization. And we can put a little bit higher, and that just makes it a little bit easier for us to challenge some of the conventional wisdom, as we discussed in the beginning. And I think that's just, again, a strong signal of intent from Maersk that we really believe that TWILL can make a difference for the customers.
Super. Makes sense. And I also wanted to move into a little bit of more specific question, but because I think artificial intelligence is something that has been on the lips of a lot of people and is being used more and more in data, and digitalization has been used or has been thought to be on the verge of transforming also the way we do logistics, shipping, supply chain. And within Damco and within Maersk, you will have access to a lot of data, right? That you could potentially use at TWILL as well. So are you thinking of using artificial intelligence and using this data to make better decisions for your clients, or are there any thoughts that you have around this?
So a simple answer is yes. We're thinking a lot about it. Because whenever we talk about technology now, you always have somebody who mentions AI, there's somebody who mentions blockchain. And it's very interesting technologies that we will definitely be able to utilize. And you have to say, correct, there's a lot of data available in Maersk that we potentially can utilize, depending on GDPR. But we definitely would love to do that. The one pushback I always give when I get that question is always asking people to take a look at where we are in the industry today. Blockchain is great. Machine learning, AI is great. We can definitely utilize it to make better decisions for our customers. But today, we still have customers, and we also push them to do it, that use fax, Excel, and email as the main means of communication within the trillion-dollar industry. So I think we have a lot more low-hanging fruits we could utilize before we actually get the benefit of blockchain and AI. And definitely not saying we shouldn't do both, but our focus now is to, okay, how do we get customers to an online platform instead of Excel? That's step number one. And then we have the company within Maersk, the collaboration between Maersk and IBM, who works on blockchain, for example, to basically create a new infrastructure for the way we exchange information in the industry. We think that is super cool, and it's definitely something we want to utilize. But right now, I don't see TWILL as the one spearheading the blockchain technology or the AI technology. I think we have dedicated functions and companies within Maersk that can help us there.
Understood. And I mean, it's a great point that you're making, and I think across the industry and across conferences, when we go to conferences, and I just came back from one in Shanghai, and I'm sure it's happening everywhere in the world. There's a lot of hype, there's a lot of discussion, and people like to talk a lot about technologies and like to talk artificial intelligence and blockchain are probably the two most prominent and common used terms on everybody's lips. But indeed, the greater challenge for most organizations right now is the fact that they haven't gone digital, that there's still a lot of paper involved, there's still a lot of Excels involved, and without proper data and without putting that in a digital format, there's not even talking about artificial intelligence and blockchain, because that can't be done. It's just impossible.
Yeah, exactly.
So I'm happy that you brought it up.
We need to do both, right? We need to do both. That's how it is. So again, as mentioned, they really give us great opportunity, but we just have to take a look in the mirror and look at where we are as an industry, and then let's do both.
Yes. And then you also mentioned the part with the blockchain and with TradeLens, the solution that IBM has been developing with Maersk, and I think that's an interesting platform that I'm sure that you mentioned you will be part of. So let's see also how that it will unfold. And as a funny coincidence, we've had a podcast on that will be released soon, and I think your partners at IBM were also mentioning that the key focus is just trying to get people to adopt and embrace the digital wave, and they were quite impressed actually that there's a lot of even on the government side, on the custom authority side, and even in maybe third world economies, they're trying to leapfrog directly from being quite paper focused directly on a platform, and they can do that through a blockchain enabled technology. So let's see how that unfolds. But back to yeah, super exciting for sure, and definitely it will take time as well, which a lot of people tend also to underestimate how long these changes take. I mean, it will take years before we actually see it, but it's a great time to be within the industry. So coming back a little bit to TWILL, and coming back a little bit again to a pretty specific question, but I think it's an important question because it's about how you guys handle risk management, right? In terms of what the customer would accept. Would this be an algorithms? What type of variables would you consider? Because I think it's a big consideration also in part of maybe somebody that hasn't used you before.
Yeah. So I hope it's not too disappointing of an answer. But this is where we have to, and we really enjoyed leveraging Damco. So our main focus, as mentioned a couple of times, but I'll just do a seventh, is creating this fantastic customer experience for the customer, and that's not easy to do. So to do so, we have to have a focused organization. A lot of organizations are really struggling focusing, but we have an advantage there, I think, because for example, the risk mitigation of you can look at credit terms, you can look at also the actual risk of transportation is something that Damco has worked with for decades, also before they were called Damco. So there we have experts, we have processes. So instead of just saying, okay, we need to build everything from scratch, then we just pick processes and we say, here we can default into strong expertise that we have in our mothership. And particularly on risk assessment, also on a customer level, There we just go directly to Damco and say, can you please help us out in this process here? And I think that's one of the things that makes us go fast. It's going to take us a lot of time to actually develop a process for that. It doesn't say we shouldn't do it, and we may need to do it, or we may should do it because we can give a better customer experience based on that. But today this is not something that the customers has asked us to focus on, and therefore we are defaulting back to existing process.
So if I'm to kind of use a metaphor for what you're doing, you're trying to, whenever it's possible, don't walk on your feet, don't walk on your hands, right? Don't reinvent the wheel. If you can use and leverage existing frameworks that Damco has already had in place and used successfully for a long time, you use it. And where there is a need for innovation, you do that as well. So if I'm kind of to summarize what you just said.
Mm-hmm. And then exactly, and then it's a moving target, right? Because then what you think is need for innovation now may be more expanded in 6 months from now. I think you learn through the process, and as we say, so what I really want to reinvent is the customer journey, how you interact with your freight forwarder. I think that's very important for us. So that's where I'm focusing my team.
Mm-hmm. Got it. And you're now present, TWILL is now present in around 19 countries around the world, if I'm not wrong, 19, 20 countries. So what's your next markets? What's your next target for the next 12 months?
Well, I'm just coming from 2 sessions today. So I introduced this morning, I had a session with Australia, I had a session with Germany. It's a kickoff session to get them ready to start on TWILL. So those are pretty evident markets. Last week I had the same with the UAE in the Middle East. So we're launching a lot of markets. This is key for us. And over the next 12 months, basically, we're really gonna focus on going global, because going global is important for the customer journey. It's important for our customers. Because a lot of our customers, even though they're smaller or medium-sized, they often have different countries that trade between. Which means that we need to make sure that we can be on all of those trade lanes to be relevant for the customer. So it's going to be a country rollout galore for the next 12 months. We're going to have a traveling team. We call them rock and rollers because they live like a rock and roller and they roll out TWILL. They're going to be traveling to a lot of different countries, being the ones spearheading the TWILL kickoff in those countries.
Sounds like fun. Yeah, it's like having concerts and developments in each country. And it's a cool team to be part of.
Exactly.
Talking about your customers, because I would love to touch a little bit about that. What are some of the most important clients you deal with? Because I remember, and I was reading that when you started, you had a hypothesis that you were expecting tech-savvy customers to be the first ones to adopt TWILL. And in reality, you realized that just a basic level of proficiency was all that was needed. If you can buy anything online, you can book your shipping online, right? So there was no need to be tech-savvy. So maybe give us some examples of some of your customers, if you can mention 1 or 2 names, and maybe some case studies, just so so that we kind of put it out there.
Yeah, I think so. My favorite customer to mention, not that it's my favorite customer, but they are dear to my heart. It's a great example of a customer that we actually really fit the platform. Not more tech savvy than any other company. It's just normal, as you say. It's a company called Ginger Ray, based in the UK. Not a super big company, but a company that makes a living out of importing party items for kids' parties, weddings, birthdays. They import a lot from China and from Asia in general, and they're really good at that. I think they're less than 50 people in this organization. They don't have anyone who's really focusing on logistics. They're really good at finding the right people to work with in Asia, where they can get their products produced and the quality they want. And they're just super happy with the process of using TWILL as the freight provider, because it makes the life easier and makes them able to focus on their customers in the UK, so the retailers, and also make them focus on their suppliers in Asia to make sure that they're producing the right product. And these guys were actually the one who gave us our very first booking. The 22nd of February, before we went live, we got the first booking from Ginger Ray. I was there in their office. watching my team back in Berlin at that point on Skype, and seeing when the lady Molly placed the booking, and seeing the team in Berlin going crazy when it popped up in the screen there, and what we built actually worked. I think Ginger Ray is just a great example of a type of customer we really want on our platform.
Got it. And they actually don't have a logistics manager. Yeah, 50 people, they don't know logistics manager. Simple enough for anybody to use.
Yeah, exactly. So they have procurement people, right? That's what they need, because they need to be able to procure the right stuff. And often you always lump, okay, your procurement, can you please do some logistics as well? And that's how you normally see it in these companies. And then they have to basically become experts on logistics, which is not their job, and they don't really create value for the customer in doing so. So no, they don't have logistics people hired. They have procurement people. This is what they need.
And how about I want to, I mean, out of curiosity, my personal curiosity, how about, because this is a good example. How about a larger organization? Because I'm sure that you work with maybe larger customers. I mean, how would it work for, I don't know, a global organization, or I mean, some of your larger customers? What would be some of the key? I mean, I also imagine that it was a bit harder maybe to get some of those guys on board. But I'm just wondering how it is.
It was quite surprising, because we didn't intentionally want to build something for larger customers. We wanted to build something for the smaller ones, because we saw that was where the problem is. And then Damco started to also bring TWILL, the value proposition, to some of the larger customers. And larger customers started telling us, that sounds kind of interesting. Could you come to us and show us what it can do? I was like, all right, we'll play along, we'll go. And now that, of course, taught us a lot of things. So it taught us that we still have some way to go to actually fulfill all their needs. We're not necessarily something we're super interested in, because we want to stay focused. But it also told us that some of what we think is larger, more complicated customers actually have done a really good job at having lean and standard processes. And when they have that, they find TWILL quite nice for them. So yes, we have larger accounts in Mexico, in the US, in the UK, predominantly those three countries, that has decided that they will start handling all the shipments through the TWILL platform, because it's just much easier what they have today. But it's because they're quite mature. But that means that they have a mature process, so they know how to do it, because we haven't built an all-encompassing freight forwarding solution that fit exactly those big customers. So for today we have I think less than 10 though of these big customers booking our platform, and I think it just makes it clear that you can't really segment your customers on size. There has to be more intelligence to it than that.
Yes, and it takes time, right? So the more you're going to build the features, I think that will come with the process and with the time. And if we had to move a little bit, because I wanted to ask you a bit about the TWILL culture, because I think that's a key differentiator again in terms of what you've built, and you have that culture of move fast, break things, adapt, change, right? So maybe I think you're implementing the agile methodology, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yeah.
It's basically first, I think it works in sprints, right? So you work in 2-week sprints where you have to have a tangible, minimal, viable product at the end of it, and then go from there. So maybe can you share with us how this worked? Did it work well? And give us some examples of what it yielded for you.
Yes, definitely I can. So let me talk about it in 2 phases. So thank you for wanting to talk about this. That's close to my heart. So agile, agile, what really allows you to do is it keeps us dynamic. It brings speed, it brings focus. So think back to your school time. Think back when you were told that the next 2 weeks, the only thing you do is focus on, together with a small group of people, you focus on delivering this project here. Imagine what you could actually achieve in those 2 weeks instead of having 8 topics at the same time. It's just amazing what focus and dedication and alignment on what it is that we need to build can do. And that's the way we're really trying to work. That's also a learning journey, to be honest. But we're really defining at the start of any of these 2-week processes, not just for our tech team, but also we do it in HR. We have the same process. To really define, this is what we need to work at, and then just focus at it. And then following normal Scrum methodology, you will look at what did you achieve, what didn't you achieve, how do you then estimate what you should do in the next 2 weeks, and then how do you learn from it, and how do you become more and more lean as a small team. That also means you can work in these small teams. So I think Agile really makes speed and focus possible. We built TWILL from the first piece of code on TWILL. We only spent 20 weeks until Ginger Ray made their first booking. It wouldn't have been possible if we didn't take the Agile methodology. But as you also say, speed and Agile also fosters mistakes. And we do mistakes. We do a lot of mistakes. But that's kind of just part of normal life, right? If you can't make mistakes, how are you going to learn? So you asked me for case studies. I think we have 15 to 20 case studies per week, which is good. We're happy with it. We've been running this session every Thursday where we get together, we get a drink, and we kind of this happy mood. And we run a session called Failure of the Week, where a Twiller, that's what we call our people, they ask to nominate other Twillers or themselves for a great failure they did or they saw this week, and focus on the learning. And then after we're done, we vote on who's the failure of the week, and then one person or one team gets to be the failure of the week, and that's actually an honor to be that. And we make small mistakes all the time. A lot of these 15 to 20 ones are quite small, but we also made big mistakes that we've learned from. Basically, to be honest, we built TWILL using a super inefficient and wrong software code base. So we had to rebuild TWILL entirely. That we learned a lot from. But we didn't know it was the wrong code base when we started off. So we just started and got going. That earned us the first customer. But we had to rebuild TWILL. We also tried to speed up country rollout because we thought we could do this quicker because we need more countries. And we fucked it up. We really made a hash of it. A couple of countries. We had to spend a lot of more time on basically bring that country back up to just normal speed. And yes. Then we also have not so much anymore, but more in the beginning. All of a sudden, the platform would break down because a developer made a decision. That's of course something you need to develop processes for, so you don't. But we want to encourage our developers to make decisions. We want them to be empowered. So we do a lot of fuck-ups, to be honest. But it's good. Yeah. Good fuck-ups.
Yes. I mean, that's the way to move forward, definitely. So it's just the embracing failure, right? Embracing failure, learning from it. It's just that, again, the bigger the organization, typically people are more and more afraid of it. So, and how do you use it in HR? You got me curious. Obviously, our business is HR. I'd love to maybe pick up your brains. How do you use Agile and 2 week sprint in HR? Maybe if you have an example.
Ramona here. Yeah. So it's quite simple. You just use it as a framework. And Ramona, our head of people, she's the one who has implemented it. I think they're on sprint 4 now, so it's quite new. But basically, it's about looking at, so what is the key focus right now? Let's say the key focus is hiring tech talent. You say that recruitment is part of our people process. Then you're going to say, okay, I'm going to focus my 70% of my HR team, my people team, on hiring tech talent this week, at least 2 weeks. We will focus on these positions here, and we will be able to close them within these 2 weeks. And then you just have complete focus on those. That also means in terms of communication internally, when somebody comes and tells, I don't know, we need a new policy for parking or something like that, that can't be those 2 weeks because we're laser focused on just focusing on what we decided we want to build those 2 weeks. So I think it creates focus, it creates speed, and it also enables you to communicate clearly inside an organization how you're prioritizing your work.
Got it. So it's very much outcome focused. Again, your example, I think with the school days, with the high school is perfect. So and indeed, if you have that single focus, typically it yields more results. So yeah, I'll try to think where I can implement it.
You can do it yourself.
I'm pretty sure I can. Yeah, it's just, I need to focus. So I think that's my problem as well. I'm multitasking, but I think, probably focusing is better on one thing at a time. Tell me a little bit, what were some of the key lessons that you've learned so far as an intrapreneur, if you may, right? I guess what you are is an intrapreneur, right? An entrepreneur within a large corporation. So what's some of the key lessons?
So one of the first things I learned, let me think. I think something I absolutely didn't know before I started this, and I think this, to be honest, this relates both to entrepreneur and entrepreneur, is to the importance of going to market with your idea. That was new to me, and I'll tell you, it was painful to launch the first version of TWILL into the market. You know, when you look through it and you look at it, you know all the details, you know where it's weak, and you know here I'm missing that, here I'm missing that, and still putting in front of a customer, that's painful. But we decided to do so, and we followed through. And within a couple of weeks, you learn more stuff about your own product that you could have learned in a year if you had stayed within your own four walls. So recommendation to all entrepreneurs and entrepreneurs, go live. And if you don't feel super uncomfortable with going to market, then you launch too late. But it's been a little bit of a cliche, but I didn't know that when I started this out, and I really see the value of it now.
Yeah.
I really do. As an entrepreneur, I think what you need to do is what I learned is you have a bigger role in terms of communication than you will probably have as an entrepreneur, internal communication, because you're challenging existing ways of doing things, and you're doing with all the best intent in the world, but you have to be somewhat sensitive to the messaging and the processes your company is doing, because you're not doing it because you're saying you suck and we're great, but you were saying it because, as I said in the beginning, right? We have some processes we think are great, but we have some processes we think that can be innovated to fit the times better, and that's what we should focus on. So I see myself as having a quite big communication/stakeholder role within the entirety of Maersk, to ensure that we are supported and seen as something great within the company.
And that's very tricky, isn't it? I mean, yeah, it's a fine balance. So yeah, I'm happy that you mentioned it cannot be easy.
I also stepped on a few landmines.
I'm sure you have, right? But since you're still here today, I think you survived. So that's a good.
That's true.
And then kind of to bring it to our play field, which is executive search, which is hiring people, which is selecting the right leadership in place. What do you look at? What kind of key attributes do you look for when you hired and when you're still hiring your leadership team, your next rock and roll stars, right, to open up TWILL in other markets?
Yeah. So, of course, you're looking for the standard answer. You're looking for the capability. You're looking for the leadership, and of course that just needs to be there. You can't hire somebody who's not fit for the role. You shouldn't just throw people too far out into the deep end. But I think an overlooked and also intangible item to look at is attitude. So if you come into TWILL with the attitude that you've been 15 years in the industry and you know how stuff works and you want to implement it in TWILL, then you're not the right person for TWILL. If you come into TWILL saying, I can really see a fantastic opportunity, using language that includes imagine if, or if we can do that, and if we can do that, imagine what impact we can have, what the customer could think of us. That's kind of what we're looking for, that kind of a visionary, almost naive thinking of what you can actually do if you put your mind to it. And if you can put people together with the same open mindset of changing stuff and who has the smartness to actually do so, I think the best we can do is just leave them alone and let them change stuff. So I'm really keen on attitude and passion.
Attitude, passion, yeah. And how would you? I'm going to probe a little bit further. How would you determine that in an interview, right? I mean, like sometimes it's a bit tricky, isn't it? I mean, it's and I don't know. I mean, I don't know what's your process. I don't know if you apply psychometrics, if you do, I don't know, assessment centers with them, but how? I mean, what's your method, right? Because sometimes it's also down to the individual, right? What's your method? Let's say you're hiring somebody within your direct team, C-level, right? C-1. What's your method to determine whether the person has the right attitude? And now you might be spilling the beans, and then the next couple of candidates that will come to you for an interview will know the answer. But
so the basics are, has the candidate actually prepared? Does he know what he's into? Is he willing to brainstorm with you in a session? does he or she have experience that tells me that this is the way they think? That's just for the interview process. We do, of course, we do a personality test, we do a logical test. That's just some of these fundamental parts of the interview. One thing we do is we're fairly democratic about the hiring process. So, for example, this week here, we are hiring a C-level into TWILL. And we're involving almost the entire company in it. So tomorrow we are hosting the first candidate on something we call a day at TWILL, again a Ramona invention, where the candidate comes in the morning and basically then they meet people in one-to-ones and not senior people, but people that are part of the organization and know how the organization actually works, and they get to co-interview each other, I would even say. And they do that all day, and we end up with a calibration session and a dinner. And then we should have a decision on that candidate by the end of the day. But it's a long day, but it's a fantastic day. That means you have more input into your decision making, and not just the standard input from a couple of C-levels in Damco and a couple of C-levels in TWILL and our HR manager and some team who decides if this person is the right one for the role.
Yeah, that's fantastic actually. Yeah, because it feels. Everybody feels as part of the decision, right? To a certain extent.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and we also have to live with the fact. So there may be somebody saying this person's not right, and we end up hiring them anyway because other people like them. So there's going to be different opinions, right? But it's a cool discussion when you have 12 people in the same room discussing a candidate with all kind of different backgrounds for actually liking or disliking that candidate.
Yeah,
it's fun.
Super.
It's really fun.
Final question from us. Looking back at the TWILL story so far, what are the things that make you most proud of?
So I'm proud of being alive. Can you say that?
Yeah, not getting fired is a good one. Yes.
Yeah, not getting fired and not getting closed down. As any startup, staying in business, staying in the market is a fantastic measure of success. Right? If we don't show the right trajectory, if we don't show the right performance, then we should not be allowed to continue. We would run out of money, people would leave us, but we're still here. 2 years in, still kicking and still having fun and still developing. I think I'm super proud of that. If you think about 2 years ago, we were an idea on 2 slides, and today we actually exist in 20 countries, as you say. I'm super proud of that.
Yes.
And I'm also proud of launching in 20 weeks. So I'm proud of the fact that we did it. I'm proud we worked so long nights and weekends to really be able to launch a product in 20 weeks because we said we wanted to do that. And we did that, and we got the first real booking. We got the first real money on the platform. That's also fantastic. And then I have two more things. Yeah. What really makes me proud and happy is when we have a sales guy visiting a customer and they come back. Then they're saying we use Slack as an internal communication. The developers told us that, and it's fantastic. Then they share a message and they send a picture and they say this customer here, they told us this and this and that, and well, that's sort of just the best way to go home from work if you get one of those messages. Yeah. And then lastly, perhaps for your domain, is that I think we've been able to really attract some strong talent, and also some strong talent that perhaps would not have been interested in the logistics industry if it wasn't have been for a little bit of a different approach. When you go out of school, or when you're 10 years into your working life and looking at what you want to do and you really want to change stuff, then to be honest, logistics and shipping is not high on a lot of people's lists. It's not that sexy. But now we're actually getting a lot of applicants, and for the C-levels we're hiring that now, we're getting so many interesting people. And I'm super proud that we're able to attract the interest of those types of people.
Yeah. You should, yeah. It's not a small thing, as you said. It's not historically an industry that used to do that, but I think slowly and surely it's changing, and it's becoming more and more interesting. And it is partly because of projects like TWILL, because of projects like also e-commerce obviously is playing a big role. So I think it's more and more people are attracted of that. So super. Well, Troels, I really appreciate the sharing. I appreciate the stories. I appreciate the the open information in terms of all that you've been through in these 2 years. And indeed, it is an impressive story. I think it's quite unique from across the market, the way you've managed to set it up, the way it was set up as part of a large group, and the way that you've managed to grow it up till today. And I'm sure that we will hear a lot more in the next couple of months. And I wish your rock star success in opening as many markets. And in 12 months we'll touch base again and we see where you are.
Yeah, let's do that. Thank you very much.
Super.
It was fun talking to you.
My pleasure. Be in touch.
All right. Cheers.
Thank you for listening to our podcast. If you liked what you heard, be sure to follow us on radopalamario.com/podcast for all the show notes, links, and extra tips covered in the interview. Make sure also to subscribe to our emailing list to get the news in the nick of time. If you're listening through a streaming platform like iTunes or Stitcher and you like what we do, please kindly review and give us 5 stars so we can keep the energy flowing and get more people to find out about our podcast. I'm most active on LinkedIn, so do feel free to follow me to stay tuned for our latest articles as well as future guests for the podcast. And if you have any suggestions or any other idea, please feel free to write to me. I respond to all. And also, please make sure not to miss our next episode, where we will be having a few other C-level and top leaders in supply chain joining us. Stay tuned.